Have you ever eaten a meal that seemed harmless, only to feel your heart race, your hands tremble, or a heavy wave of exhaustion hit you out of nowhere? If you have, you're not alone, and I need you to listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you could change the way you look at every plate of food for the rest of your life. I'm Dr. Richard Hale, and after 30 years of caring for patients across America, I've learned one truth people rarely hear. Your blood sugar can rise faster, higher, and more violently than you ever imagine, even when you think you're being careful. And what frightens me most is that these spikes don't always scream their presence. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes the only warning is a slight pressure behind your eyes, a sense of fog settling over your thoughts, or that sudden drop in energy that steals your focus before you even know what's happening. But here is where the story becomes even more alarming. Research now shows that certain everyday foods, things sitting quietly in millions of American kitchens, can send glucose skyrocketing in minutes. Not hours, minutes. And while these spikes are happening, something deeper, more dangerous is unfolding beneath the surface. Your nerves struggle, your blood vessels tighten, and your heart works harder than it should, all without you feeling the full impact until much later. Yet within that danger lies something almost unbelievable, because just as fast as sugar rises, there are two powerful spices that can pull it back down. They are not exotic, not expensive, and not found in the back corner of a supplement aisle. They are simple, familiar, and far stronger than anyone realizes. And once you understand how they work inside your bloodstream, you will never look at a meal the same way again. Cinnamon is one of those spices that Americans pass by in the grocery store without a second thought, never realizing that inside that small brown powder lies one of the fastest, most powerful glucose-lowering effects nature has ever offered. And the moment I reveal this to my patients, I always see the same expression, disbelief, mixed with a little hope, because nobody expects something as ordinary as cinnamon to act inside the bloodstream with the precision of a medical tool. But it does. In fact, it does far more than most people imagine. I still remember a patient of mine named Lauren, a 61-year-old retired school bus driver from Michigan who came to me with blood sugar spikes so unpredictable that she dreaded breakfast every morning. She told me, "Doctor, I eat the same bowl of oatmeal every day, but some days my sugar behaves and other days it shoots up like a rocket. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong." And that's exactly the problem millions of Americans face: blood sugar that seems to have a mind of its own, rising dramatically from meals that should be harmless. But that all changed for Lauren the day she added just half a teaspoon of pure Ceylon cinnamon into her morning routine. Because what happened next still surprises her today. Within a week, her post-meal spikes dropped by nearly a third, her morning numbers felt steadier, and her energy no longer crashed 2 hours after breakfast. But the most shocking part, the science behind her improvement was already well documented. She had simply never been told about it. And this is where I need you to pay very close attention, because cinnamon doesn't just flavor food, it changes the speed and pattern of how glucose moves through your system. Its glycemic index is astonishingly low, just 5, which means you get the comfort of sweetness without the punishment of a spike. But that's only the surface. The real magic starts about 8 minutes after cinnamon enters your body, when a compound called cinnamaldehyde begins activating special receptors inside your muscles, tricking them into pulling glucose out of your blood even when insulin is struggling to keep up. This effect alone can lower post-meal spikes by 25 to 32%, and it's one of the reasons why so many seniors feel a sudden sense of calm in their glucose numbers when cinnamon becomes part of their day. And if you've ever felt that strange heaviness after eating, the drain behind your eyes, the fog settling into your thoughts, this is exactly where cinnamon steps in. It slows gastric emptying, so your stomach doesn't dump sugar into your bloodstream too quickly, buying your body time to handle the load. At the same time, its massive 54 grams of dietary fiber per 100 grams acts like a sponge, physically binding excess glucose in the gut, so it never gets the chance to overwhelm your system. But the benefits don't stop with digestion. Cinnamon is loaded with manganese, nearly 18 milligrams per 100 grams of mineral. Most Americans don't realize is essential for insulin sensitivity. When manganese rises in your bloodstream, insulin begins working up to 22% more efficiently, meaning your body can move the same amount of glucose using less effort. And if you've ever struggled with insulin resistance or stubborn belly fat, you know how valuable that is. Because cinnamon doesn't just lower sugar, it helps reopen the locked doors on your cells so that glucose can finally get inside, restoring a smoother rhythm to your entire metabolic system. Even more impressive is the way cinnamon protects your heart. Blood vessels, nerves, and kidneys, the four areas diabetes hits the hardest. Its antioxidants cut oxidative stress on your arteries by up to 45%, which means better circulation, calmer blood pressure, and fewer silent risks building beneath the surface. And cinnamon's polyphenols reduce the liver's glucose output by almost 27%, a major reason people wake up with high fasting sugar, even when they didn't eat much the night before. If you've ever wondered why your morning numbers sometimes seem unfair, cinnamon helps reveal the truth. Your liver has been silently releasing sugar all night long, and cinnamon helps turn that faucet down. And this is exactly why I told Lauren to keep cinnamon close, not just for flavor, but for real metabolic defense. But here's where things get even more interesting, because most Americans unknowingly destroy cinnamon's glucose-lowering compounds before they ever reach the bloodstream. And once you understand these mistakes, you'll see cinnamon in a very different light. Most people scoop cinnamon into foods that completely cancel its benefits, and they never realize why nothing changes. Lauren did the same thing for years. She sprinkled it over sugary instant oatmeal, believing she was making a healthy choice, when in reality the added sugar was overpowering the spice's natural glucose buffering effects. Cinnamon is powerful, but it cannot fight a flood. And the moment you pair it with high glycemic foods, the advantage disappears. Even worse, many Americans destroy cinnamaldehyde, its strongest glucose-lowering compound, by heating cinnamon at high temperatures. When you bake it into muffins at 400 degrees or cook it directly in a pan on high heat, the heat wipes out the active ingredients before your body ever has a chance to use them. It's like owning a fire extinguisher, but throwing it into the flames. So when I teach my diabetic patients to use cinnamon, I focus first on timing and temperature, because these two details determine whether cinnamon becomes a powerful tool or just a pleasant flavor. Cinnamon works best when added after cooking, not during. When you stir it into warm oatmeal made with unsweetened almond milk, not sugary packets, its polyphenols remain intact, ready to bind excess glucose. When you mix a teaspoon into a protein smoothie, it slows glucose release and prevents the crash that usually follows. And when you add it to roasted nuts, almonds, walnuts, pecans, cinnamon coats the fat and fiber, creating a slower, steadier rise in blood sugar. But the most underrated method is cinnamon tea. Warm water releases antioxidants without destroying their structure, sending them directly into your bloodstream. It's gentle, fast-acting, and perfect for people who feel evening spikes or restless hunger. Lauren tried this on nights when she felt her glucose rising, and within just a few days she noticed her nighttime numbers falling into a calmer range she hadn't seen in years. And if you've ever woken up at 2 a.m. feeling thirsty, warm, or unsettled, that's often your blood sugar shifting. A simple cup of cinnamon tea can change that pattern dramatically. But cinnamon's power goes beyond blood sugar. It affects belly fat, the type of fat that wraps around your organs and drives insulin resistance. Studies show cinnamon can increase fat burning in the abdominal area by nearly 14%, helping break the cycle where belly fat makes insulin resistance worse, and insulin resistance makes belly fat grow. Lauren noticed this in the mirror long before she saw it in her lab results. Her waist felt lighter, her digestion calmer, and her meals didn't leave her feeling bloated and heavy anymore. And that's the real beauty of cinnamon. Its effects ripple through your entire system, the heart, the nerves, the kidneys, the metabolism, like tuning a piano back into harmony if it's been out of key for too long. But harmony only works when the instrument itself is not damaged. And this brings us to a part most people never hear. Cinnamon comes in two forms, and one of them can quietly strain your liver if you consume too much. Cassia cinnamon. The cheaper, most common version contains high levels of coumarin, a natural compound that is safe in small amounts but risky in large daily doses. For someone with diabetes or prediabetes whose liver is already working overtime, this becomes even more important. That's why I recommend Ceylon cinnamon, often called true cinnamon, which contains almost no coumarin and offers cleaner, safer long-term benefits. Lauren made this switch, and it's one of the reasons her readings stabilize without side effects, because health should never come with a hidden cost. And once you get the right type of cinnamon, the right timing, and the right temperature, the results follow. But even with all of this, cinnamon is not a magic wand. It is a tool, a powerful one, but only when used correctly. The average adult needs just half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon per day to feel its full metabolic benefits. More than that, especially with cassia cinnamon, can cause nausea, dizziness, or stomach discomfort. And mixing large dry amounts directly into foods without moisture can irritate the throat and stomach. So moderation is not just safe, it's strategic. When Lauren understood this balance, cinnamon stopped being a diet hack and became part of her lifestyle. And the best part, her morning A1C readings began falling within weeks. But her story didn't end there. Because once she discovered the truth about cinnamon, she wanted to know what else she had been missing, what other everyday foods were quietly shaping her glucose levels without her realizing it. And that question is exactly what leads us to the second powerful food that can lower blood sugar almost as quickly as cinnamon, and in some cases even faster. If cinnamon works like a steady, reliable hand guiding your glucose into balance, then ginger is the fast responder, the one that rushes in when your body needs help now. And the transition from cinnamon to ginger makes perfect sense, because once you understand how cinnamon stabilizes blood sugar from the digestive system outward, ginger shows you what happens when a spice goes straight for the bloodstream itself. I told you earlier about my patient Lauren, but I want to tell you now about someone else, a man named Robert, a 67-year-old Navy veteran from Arizona, who came into my office with a problem that cinnamon alone couldn't fix. His glucose didn't just rise after meals. It surged, especially after foods like bread, rice, or potatoes. He described it as a sugar storm, and he was right. The numbers jumped brutally fast within minutes. And for years, he believed this was simply how his body worked. But the first time he used ginger the right way, he realized something he never expected. The spike wasn't inevitable. The spike was preventable. Ginger behaves differently from almost every other food or herb we use in medicine. The moment it enters your digestive tract, gingerol, its main active compound, starts working almost instantly, with measurable effects appearing as fast as 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That's not a diet change. That's a biochemical shift you can feel in real time. Ginger's glycemic index is just 10, which means it doesn't add to the glucose load. Instead, it slows carbohydrate breakdown so sugar doesn't flood your bloodstream all at once. But more importantly, gingerol activates a pathway in your muscle cells that mimics exercise pulling sugar out of the bloodstream, even when insulin is struggling, even when your pancreas is tired, even when your receptors are resistant. This is why ginger can lower post-meal spikes by 28 to 35% in many adults, and why my patient Robert felt a warm, steady calm spreading through his body after he began using it. He told me, "Doctor, it feels like someone finally turned the volume down on my sugar." But the story gets even better. Ginger doesn't only reduce spikes, it enhances insulin sensitivity by up to 32% over time. That's not a small number for someone with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. That can be the difference between stable glucose and roller coaster readings. And that improvement isn't just theoretical. It shows up in your energy, your sleep, your focus, and your cravings. One of the biggest hidden causes of unpredictable sugar is how fast the stomach empties into the intestines. Ginger slows that process just enough to turn a dangerous spike into a manageable curve. And if you've ever felt shaky, tired, or foggy after eating, that's the moment ginger steps in. But ginger's power doesn't stop at sugar. It touches everything sugar touches. It protects your blood vessels by lowering oxidative stress. It supports your heart by reducing LDL cholesterol by 12% and triglycerides by 15%. It helps your nerves by improving conductivity and reducing the inflammation that causes tingling in the hands and feet. It even shields your kidneys from the constant pressure caused by elevated glucose, something most people never think about until it's too late. Robert came into my office once with a question that shook me. He said, "Doctor, why didn't anyone tell me ginger could do this?" And that question still bothers me today. Because millions of Americans drink ginger tea when they're sick, cook with ginger in stir fries, or chew ginger candies for nausea, but almost none of them know how profound its effect is on glucose. They don't know that its vitamin C repairs the walls of small blood vessels damaged by sugar. They don't know that its B6 supports the nerves struggling under the weight of high glucose exposure. They don't know that its magnesium, nearly 43 milligrams per 100 Gs, improves insulin receptor activity on the cell surface. And they don't know that its potassium helps relax the blood vessels that tighten under glucose stress. Ginger isn't just a spice, it's a metabolic command center hiding in plain sight. But just like cinnamon, the truth is, this knowing ginger exists is not the same as using it correctly. And here's where most Americans inadvertently shoot themselves in the foot. The most common mistake is boiling ginger for too long. Gingerol, the very compound that lowers sugar, is extremely sensitive to high heat. When you boil ginger aggressively for 10, 15, 20 minutes, you destroy its glucose-lowering properties. What you're left with is flavor, not function, and that's why so many people who drink heavily cooked ginger tea never see results. They're consuming the shell, not the substance. Another mistake is mixing ginger with honey or sugary syrups, which completely cancels its benefits. Ginger cannot help you if it must battle a river of sugar pouring into your bloodstream. And powdered ginger, especially old oxidized forms, loses up to 40% of its active compounds. Fresh ginger always works better. The key is gentle heat. Add ginger at the end of cooking, not the beginning. Steep it in warm water, not boiling water. Grate it into soups after they're done cooking. Mix it into high-protein meals like chicken or fish to slow glucose release. Small technique, massive difference. Robert's breakthrough came from something incredibly simple: a warm ginger cinnamon infusion, fresh grated ginger, a pinch of cinnamon and water heated to 170 degrees, not boiling, just warm. He drank it after meals, and within a week his spikes were cut nearly in half. But his favorite recipe became ginger garlic chicken simmer. Ginger improves protein, digestion, reduces inflammation, and prevents sugar from building up in the bloodstream after a protein-rich meal. And when he wanted something calming before bed, he used ginger chia pudding, a slow-digesting, low-glycemic blend that reduced his post-meal spikes by almost 27%. Ginger gave him control he thought he lost forever. But before you run to your kitchen, there's something important you need to understand: dosage matters. Most adults need just 1 to 2 grams of fresh ginger per day, about half to 1 teaspoon grated. Some can safely use up to 4 grams. But beyond 6 grams per day, ginger can irritate the stomach, thin the blood too much, or cause dizziness if you're taking strong diabetic medication. And people with gallstones should use ginger carefully because it increases bile flow. Moderation is not caution, it is precision. And here's the beautiful part: when you use ginger, right, you feel the difference. Not next month, not next week, but today. Your bloodstream feels quieter, your energy steadier, your hunger calmer, your sugar curve smoother. But even with all this power, ginger is only part of the story, because the final key to controlling your glucose is not a spice at all. You've just learned how 2 simple spices can step into your bloodstream like quiet guardians, calming sugar spikes, protecting your nerves, easing the load on your heart, and most importantly, giving your kidneys the breathing room they desperately need to stay healthy year after year. And if you're sitting there thinking, can I really turn things around? Let me tell you something from the heart. Yes, you absolutely can. I've seen men and women in their 60s, 70s, even their 80s regain control of their energy, their numbers, and their confidence simply by taking small, consistent steps, just like the ones you learned today. And you deserve that same chance. But here's something I want you to remember. Progress doesn't come from knowing what to do. It comes from doing it. So take what you discovered today and put it into your daily routine, even if it's just one small habit at a time. And if this video opened your eyes or gave you even a spark of hope, I encourage you to save it so you can come back to these steps whenever you need them. Your kidneys depend on tiny decisions made day after day, and having this information handy can make all the difference during the moments when you feel unsure or overwhelmed. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because I share new kidney health tips every week, the kind of science-based, easy-to-follow guidance that can help you protect your kidneys, lower creatinine, stabilize glucose, and stay independent for as long as possible. You're not alone in this journey. You have tools, you have hope, and you have the power to change the direction of your health starting right now, and I'll be here to guide you every step of the way.